Whaling is the process of hunting and killing whales for their oil, meat, blubber, or whalebone. Whaling started around the Industrial Revolution, which is when people first found out their oil was very important for lamp fuel and producing soap. Now, the practice is unnecessary and in most cases entirely wrong. This presentation will explore the many issues revolving around whaling. The problem with whaling that we will be going over is the negative effects it has in our environment. The next problem with whaling is that it can obviously lead to the extinction of all whales. The final problem with whaling is that it is highly immoral and it is animal cruelty.
The main effect on the environment is the increase in carbon dioxide, which contributes to global warming and melting of the ice caps and heats up the world with too much emissions in the air, which will heat up the surface of the earth and is a growing problem and a controversial issue today. And by overwhelming, this will only make the problem worse. If whaling continues, whales will go extinct and there will be an overpopulation of plankton and will mess up the entire ecosystem. The solution to this is there are many alternatives to the resources out of killing whales for their oil. The U.S. banned whale oil in 1973 in the Endangered Species Act. Since then, we have found other alternatives to the whale oil like vegetable oil, or when in illuminant products. It gave off a bad odor and was replaced by longer-lasting and odorless kerosene. Although Japan uses their meat too, there are other types of meats that could be used by other animals because whales are very important to the ecosystem and they have been endangered since the 70s, thus creating the Endangered Species Act and put on watch lists, and they are still on there today.
Another problem is that whaling is a completely unsustainable form of hunting, as even with the minor regulations, the whales are being killed much quicker than they can reproduce. Furthermore, whales are long-lived mammals, with average lifespans around 50 years and take up to 14 months to reproduce. In combination with 1,000 whales killed a year due to whaling, the population is on a constant decrease and heading towards extinction. As stated earlier, the decrease in whale population would have drastic effects on the environment and ecosystem. Although it would be much more effective to ban whaling entirely, the reality of the situation does not allow for this. The best compromise is to push support to the International Whaling Commission, or IWC. The IWC is the global organization tasked with the conservation of all whales. Since 1946, the organization has expanded to limit 3 types of whaling: aboriginal subsistence whaling, commercial whaling, and finally, scientific whaling. Unfortunately, the most harmful whaling is commercial, yet is also most difficult to limit as the IWC has no control over the countries which practice this form of hunting. Knowing this, the best way to contribute to stopping whaling is to donate directly to the IWC, as with proper funding, they can gain recognition to have power over countries who choose not to follow the set guidelines.
The definition of animal cruelty is an unhuman act against animals of all walks of life, which includes excessive killing of animals for sport. The process of killing a whale is very complicated. Whale missions usually consist of a few smaller catcher boats and one larger vessel that serves as the home base for the whole mission. Every ship has a grenade harpoon cannon and 2 winches for bringing the whales aboard. It is very common for a whale to not die when they are struck by a grenade harpoon. This leads to a long, suffering death for the whale. There are over 16,000 whales killed every year from whaling. Whaling is a terrible thing that happens in our world daily, and it's not likely we can stop countries like Japan that do it legally. If they're not going to make it illegal, we need to make sure the weapons they use against the whales are more effective and humane. Whaling in general is terrible, but what's more cruel is that the hunted whales must suffer. The whole whaling process is considered animal cruelty, and it needs to be stopped by more effort and money going into the cause against it.
Ideally, commercial whaling would be banned entirely as it is harmful to the environment, unsustainable, and is extremely cruel. To add to these negatives, the industry provides very little beneficial resources rather than the whale meat, and all other materials harvested have substitutes that are just as useful. With the information gathered from this presentation, we hope more will support the cause to stop whaling.